Creative Murders by Carter Brown, Chapter 1, Lieutenant Wheeler, she repeated in a dull voice. From the sheriff's office? She was tall and generously proportioned, with a thin white silk robe wrapped loosely around her and showing over 6 inches of deep cleavage, rising sharply up to the inner flanges of her milk-white breasts, and she looked tired. At 4 a.m., she looked even more tired than I felt, and it seemed unfair somehow. She had been dragged from her bed only as far as the front door. "And you're Eleanor Dolan?" I asked. "I think I'm Eleanor Dolan." She pushed her hand over her short, glossy black hair and yawned openly, and her breasts lifted lazily with the effort. The robe parted a little, and I caught the briefest glimpse of one shapely thigh. It's a big problem remembering exactly who you are when you're dragged out of bed in the middle of the goddamn night. Now, there's a coincidence. I bared my teeth at her. The exact same thing happened to me. "So what's it all about, Lieutenant? You've forgotten already?" I gurgled. "You don't remember calling the sheriff's office 30 minutes ago and reporting a homicide?" Her dark eyes widened as she stared at me blankly. Then her lips moved silently for a couple of seconds before the words came out. "Are you out of your mind? I never called anybody about any homicide. I went to bed around 10 last night, completely bushed, and the next thing knew you were leaning on my doorbell like the whole building was a mass of flames, or something. Somebody called in and reported a homicide, used your name and address, just as some kind of a gag." I said in a disbelieving voice. "How the hell would I know?" she snapped. "You mind if I take a look around your apartment?" "I mind." She glared at me. "But I guess that isn't about to stop you." She pulled the front door open wide, then moved to one side to give me room to step into the apartment. The way the living room was furnished was a definite challenge to any of the glossy homemaking magazines. Long drapes were drawn tightly across the windows, making the room more claustrophobic than snug. Eleanor Dolan perched herself on the nearest arm of the couch and thrust her hands deep into the pockets of her robe. "It's compact," she said. Her index finger pointed in turn toward the various doors. "Kitchen, bathroom, and bedroom. So go take a look for yourself, Lieutenant, and please run, don't walk." I'm feeling worse now than I did before I first went to bed. The kitchen was empty, all neat with everything in its place, including the bolt and chain on the outside door. Next stop was the bedroom. The crumpled covers were thrown to one side, and the faint depression made by her body in the bed was still warm to the touch. I went back into the living room and headed toward the bathroom. "Did you check under the bed, Lieutenant?" Her full lower lip quirked at me. "I always stash the bodies of my victims there so the cleaner can take care of them in the morning." I went into the bathroom and switched on the light. There was a solid-looking shadow behind the closed glass door of the shower stall, and it wouldn't go away, not even after I had blinked hard a couple of times. I opened the glass door slowly, while that bleak feeling of certainty was busy tying knots inside my stomach. A naked girl was sitting on a stool facing me, her back and head leaning against the tiled wall, her long pale hair falling straight down both sides of her face. Her eyes were closed, and there was a relaxed look on her face. If it hadn't been for the ugly bullet hole in her left breast, a raw wound surrounded by a dark crust of dried blood, I could have figured she was just sleeping. Her forearm was cold to the touch of my reluctant index finger, and as I looked down at her trim body, which must have contained more than the usual measure of vitality when she was alive, I thought, what a waste. It was the sort of compact, nubile body that could send the imagination working overtime. My eyes swept down from her breast to her parted thighs, and I thought, shit, what am I doing, standing here like this, ogling a beautiful corpse when there was work to be done? Then I heard a sharp intake of breath behind me, followed by a soft thumping sound. When I turned around, Eleanor Dolan was stretched out cold on the bathroom floor. So she was the type that fainted. After I had carried her out to the couch, I went searching in the kitchen and found a near full fifth of rye. I thoughtfully made a couple of drinks because we were both suffering from shock, then took them back into the living room. Maybe a minute later, she made a faint groaning sound, then sat up suddenly and looked at me with horror-stricken eyes. "Here," I said, and shoved the glass in her hand. "Drink this." She gulped a mouthful of rye and choked on it momentarily. "It's not possible." Her head shook violently. "It's some kind of a nightmare." Goldie couldn't be. She took another swig of rye without choking this time. "She wasn't here when I went to bed." "Take it easy," I told her. It was the kind of original phrase that only a cop can dream up in moments of stress. "Goldie who?" "Goldie Baker. This was her apartment. I only moved in a couple of weeks back." "Are you sure she ever moved out?" "Of course I'm sure." She bit down on her lower lip. "It's just not possible. She wasn't there in the bathroom, before I went to bed." "I know it, because the last thing I did was take a shower and brush my teeth." "What time was that?" I queried. "Around 10. She sank her teeth sharply into her lower lip and looked at me with something close to terror in her eyes. I locked the back door and bolted it, put the night chain on. I did the same with the front door, too. "Nobody could have gotten into the apartment, Lieutenant, nobody." "How about the windows?" said mechanically. "This apartment is on the 4th floor." Her head jerked suddenly as she looked over her shoulder toward the heavy closed drapes. "The balcony." I walked across to the drapes and pulled them open. A plate glass door opened out onto a small balcony. I slid it back, using the finger grips of the lock. Way in the distance, Bald Mountain was a dark, looming silhouette against the first flush of dawn. I went back into the living room